out here on Flex Your Rights. It's a YouTube channel. And there's this video, "Are you free to go? Officer, am I free to go?" That's the name of the video. Flex Your Rights. The unhinged, unequal or unequal
Unless you're
balances.
detained or arrested, you may terminate the encounter at any time, but don't wait for the officer to dismiss you. Simply ask if you're free to go.
Don't ask, or don't wait for the officer to dismiss you. Ask if you're free to go. And then they got a black guy talking to a cop, and he's the cop's gonna say, the dogs are gonna tear apart your car, and this guy's gonna say, "Are you detaining me, or am I free to go?" But that's not how it's done. That's not how you flex your rights. What you do when you have to talk to a cop, the cops approach you. You didn't do anything. You didn't do anything illegal, certainly. Is you conversate with the cop in just casual manner. Hey, what's going on? And he's like, "Hey, can I see your ID?" And you're like, "No, I don't have to give you an ID, but what are you out here? What are you doing? Why are you talking to me?" And he's like, "Well, I received a call that there's somebody out here in front of this business," and you go, "Oh, okay, so that's all there is you got a call from these people that I'm standing out here. Well, so you're not investigating a crime. That's what it is. You've established at that point. Once you find out why it is that they have been sent to where you are, and of course, invariably, you're gonna find out that by this very the briefest initial confrontation with the cop, you're gonna find out that they are not there investigating a crime. And once you know that, you are free to go. You do not have to give them an ID. You don't have to comply with anything that they say, unless you're in a vehicle. There's some laws that have been written that most people respect that say, if you're in a car and the cops tell you to do something, that you have to to control your vehicle. You don't have to do stuff that it doesn't have to do with the control of your vehicle. Like, if they're like, hand me whatever is under the seat there, you don't have to do that. And the only thing you would have to do is if they tell you, like, pull your vehicle over here to the side of the road, or, pull your vehicle off of the street, or, something that's like, to control your vehicle, to make your vehicle safe to whatever the situation is. But if they're just telling you to do stuff, they don't have any report of a crime, there's no evidence of a crime having been committed, and they want to shake you down, you don't have to comply with any of that. And a lot of the time, what will happen is you tell them, like, "Oh, okay, well, you told me, that you're not investigating any crime. You've received report of nothing else than I'm standing out here. So I'm free to go, and I'm going to walk home now. Thanks, have a nice day." And as you start to walk off, then he's going to assault you. He's going to grab you. He's going to tackle you to the ground and put you in handcuffs and drag you off to jail. But then you have a civil rights case that you can probably smoke them for, some tens of thousands of dollars, especially if, you have a history of, like, psychological impairment, and that your psychology has been devastated by the government. If the government has in the past caused you to have psychological, like if, I don't know, you got PTSD from warfare, or, I don't know, you got, like, you got arrested 1,000 times, you spent, you spent so much time in jail that, like, just having to deal with cops at all, just bugs you out or whatever, that all of these distant past, or all of these past arrests, they were for, like, trespassing, disorderly conduct, all this bullshit that they use when they got nothing on you, when you haven't committed a crime, but they want to get their get their fee money so that they can get their money from from jailing people and stuffing the for-profit prisons full, and that they want to gain promotion. The pigs right there in the street, that's what they're trying to do, is they're trying to get promoted within their police organization by bringing in a bunch of people to go to jail for profit. That the politicians are getting kickbacks, the judges are getting kickbacks from the people that own the prisons, and then they got these cops out there trying to climb the ladder, and it's all criminal. It's a huge it's a monolithic kidnapping regime. What's going on right now in America, and But that's how it is that you deal with the cops, is you establish that they're not investigating a crime, and then you just tell them, hey, all right, thanks, thanks for letting me know that, you're out here just on a harassment detail, and, that you're not investigating any crime, and, I'll see you later. And then, then just walk off. And, if they then assault you, and, depending on the level of their assault, you could actually, if they assault you with deadly force, then you can actually fight back, and you can go with your fighting up to killing them, and you could still win at a jury trial if if you get a jury that the jury respects real legality, true law, which is that when people who are acting as part of a corrupt regime attempt to impose on you kidnapping, your detention without just cause, then you can defend yourself to whatever extent it takes to overcome the force that it is that they're trying to. I don't recommend it. I don't recommend fighting the cops. Because it eventually leads to surrender. Eventually, you have to surrender, or get killed. If you're so strong to, but I definitely advocate resisting, to the fullest extent, and to whatever extent is necessary to preserve your freedom, and to thwart their making money off you by whatever fines and fees and whatever else it is that they're gonna get from you when they do this stupid gross criminal corruption on you. But I don't know, this video is bogus. Do not ask the cop questions about what it is that I don't know. Don't ask him if you're free to go. Know that you are free to go because he's not investigating any crime. And then exercise your right. Flex your right to walk away. To and make statement to the cop to let him know that that's what it is that you're doing. Be like, all right, well, you just revealed to me that you're not investigating any crime. You're out here investigating what I'm doing, standing here, and standing here is not any crime. So I'm going to take off. It's been nice talking to you, or not really. And, that's all there is to it. I've done it a bunch of times that, cops wanted to harass me, come up to me, had questions for me about, what I'm doing wherever, that, that I wasn't doing anything criminal. And, they want, they want to shake me down for, whatever it is. And, first thing I would do is establish that they're not investigating any crime. The report that they received was just about my presence, and I'm a regular guy standing out here in the street or whatever. And so then once I've established that, then I just go, if I'm trying to stay there, wherever it is that I received this report, then I just at that point, I go into my routine telling them about how corrupt the police are, and how corrupt the federal government is, and how corrupt all the politicians are, and all that stuff, right? And that's when I interact with cops, I'll fill their ear as long as they want to stand there and talk to me, but I don't discuss what it is that I'm doing there, other than to establish that I haven't broken any laws. That's the whole thing that I will tell them. I'll be like, I rode my bike down here, I'm sitting here on the sidewalk, and, that's all that's up with me today. What are you doing? Why are you over here talking to me? And they'd be like, well, I got a report from so-and-so, and then, that's it. I'll be like, okay, well, I'm not going to give you an ID. I have no obligation to give you an ID. I'm not going to, I'm not going to cooperate further, with anything that you're asking me because you've already established that you're not investigating any crime. There's been no report of a crime. And, then at that point, if I'm trying to stay there, then I'll just stay there and, I'll tolerate his presence, talk to him about the corruption. And usually when I start talking about the corruption, then they want to go the other way, that, they don't want to hear it. They don't want to fill their ears or their head with it because, then, as much as they continue to serve these grossly corrupt powers, they become even worse, complicit with the criminality of the government. So I actually, there was like, when I was hanging out in Copley Square in Boston, there was a cop that I used to talk to on a regular basis because he would park he would drive his cruiser into the park that I was hanging out in. He would park it there, and I'd go up to his window. I'd talk to him about the Bush family fortune being from the Third Reich of Nazi Germany, and I don't know, I would just go on and on and on about all the corruption that the federal government was doing, and then he got reassigned, apparently. It was just like about 3 times or so that I walked up and I started talking to him that I never saw that cop again. And, I don't know, there's like, just about every time I got arrested, I spoke to the cops at length about all the corruption that's going on, and then the charges were dropped. That I didn't even have to go to court. Like, I went to court for the arraignment, but then after I got released, then the charges were dropped, like, either immediately or the next time that I showed up to court, the charges were dropped. And they're all bogus charges anyhow. The cops just like arrested me on nothing and then just making stuff up later. Once I had making stuff up when they get back to the station to what they write down on their paperwork to justify what it is that justify the arrest, even though there was no reason for the arrest. And then they'd be like, so like, most of the time that I was arrested, I didn't even have to like go to trial or anything like that. The charges were dropped before, I ever had to go to trial. But if I ever had to go to trial, I would smoke them in trial. There's actually 2 times that I was denied jury trial. Eventually, on one of these times, and it was the cops claimed that I assaulted them. Eventually, the charges were dropped based on first, the judge refused to give me a jury trial, which is, that's what I requested, was a jury trial. And then, later, as I kept on showing up to the hearings, I would always present, there was this evidence recorded, like, there was a videotape recording in 7-Eleven that I was the one in this incident that called the cops, where they ended up arresting me and charging me with assaulting them. Anyhow, there was this incident that occurred in 7-Eleven that the clerk in 7-Eleven smacked my ice water cup out of my hand. And I was like, what the hell are you doing? And she's, she's flipping off, flying, like, hey, you're not going to fill your cup. And I had already paid for this ice cup from the guy that was behind the counter. It was like the hottest day of the year or whatever. And so, I would regularly go into 7-Eleven to buy a cup of ice water. And they only charge $0.25, so, it's no big deal. And so I was going to refill this cup of ice water. And, she smashed my cup out of my hand, and then I was like, I looked at the guy behind the counter. I was like, I already paid for this. What the hell is going on here? And she's still screaming at me, and so I was like, fine, I'll just call the cops. And so I went and I called the cops, and they showed up. And instead of getting me my cup of ice water, which they could have even charged that woman with assault for smacking my hand, smacking my stuff onto the floor, and instead of, all I just wanted my cup of ice water. But instead of getting my cup of ice water, the cops turned this into a situation with me. They told me to get the hell out of 7-Eleven and never come back. And I hadn't done anything wrong. Alls I did was go in there to get my ice water. And then, you know, I filled the cup with ice and I went to get the water. And on the way to get the water, she smacked the cup out of my hand. Anyhow, yeah, so I call the cops, they show up, they tell me to get the hell out of there, never go back to 7-Eleven. I was like, oh no, you know, that is, you know, that's not some kind of law, you know, that you guys can come down here and, you know, as like the pig enforcer on the street, you know, just tell me what to do, that I can't go in certain places, that I get my ice water every day, you know, and, yeah, they asked me for my skateboard. I handed them my skateboard because I told them, I was like, oh no, I was like, you guys are not, you know, you're not gonna bar me from 7-Eleven, you know, you cops in the street, you know, out here, you know, writing laws about, you know, where I can go and can't go. And so I started walking down the street backwards, and I pulled out my cell phone and I called 911. And so while I was talking to the 911 dispatcher, the cops came up and you know, I'm telling her, like, you know, there's cops out here harassing me. You know, I want to speak to a supervisor, and you know, she wouldn't put me through to a supervisor. And then eventually, you know, I just kept on telling her, you know, I need to speak to a supervisor. She eventually put me to somebody who didn't really seem to be a supervisor, you know, and who eventually just hung up on me. But they had come up to me while I was on the phone with 911 and asked me for my skateboard. Gave them my skateboard, and then they walked back to their truck, and then they sat in their truck for like 20 minutes with my skateboard. And when I got off the phone with 911 because I got hung up on, then I went over to the truck and I was like, okay, well, they tell me I got to deal with you guys to get my skateboard back. Can I have my skateboard? And they're like, you got an ID? And I was like, no. And they got out of their truck, and the one of them came up behind me, and as he was coming up behind me, I'm like turning to say, like, you know, where you go, you know, what are you doing? And he's like grabbing onto me and he's pushing me into the truck. And I just like, they had my hands behind my back at that point, you know, one on either side of me, behind me. And I like bent over and like I tried to scoot backwards to go in between them and try to break their grasp, but one of them dove onto my back and put me in a headlock and tackled me to the ground. And you know, the other one was still wrenching on my arm, and they had me like on like my knees and one hand, and then I was like, okay guys, I'm gonna put my face on the ground. And they're like, all right, well, go ahead and do it. And I put my face on the ground, and I don't know, they put me in cuffs. And then I don't know, like in the course of knocking me to the ground, one of them had lost his glasses. His glasses fell off onto the ground, and when I stood up, I stepped on his glasses. They later claimed that I knocked his glasses off of his face, which is not true, and they were trying to say that I broke his glasses by the hit that I put on him, which is not true. I broke his glasses by stepping on them when I stood up. When I stood up from the ground, I saw his glasses on the ground. I was like, oh, these motherfuckers. And so I stomped on his glasses. Like, I didn't, I just stepped on it, and then like I like wiggled my foot back and forth on it to grind it into the pavement. And yeah, so then they tried to claim that was the result of I don't know, of me hitting him, which never happened. I didn't hit any of them. I've never hit a cop in my whole life. But yeah, I don't know. So they then charged me with assaulting them, even though, you know, they harassed me and then they assaulted me. And then they charged me with assaulting the woman in 7-Eleven, even though I had called them and they told me to just to leave and never come back. You know, if I assaulted her, you know, why would they have told me to leave and never come back? You know, and then didn't arrest me for 20 minutes after I had made a call to 911. So the first time I went into court, I was like, there was a 7-Eleven video that shows that I didn't assault anybody. And they're like, oh, the video's been destroyed. That was the next time I go into court. The video's been destroyed. Then I go into court, and so that time in court I say, where's the 911 call of you know, of the second call that I made? I made one call to call them to complain about this woman that assaulted me, knocked my ice water out of my hand. I made a second call to say that the cops were harassing me, and they said that they didn't have any second 911 call. Then I was like, there's a camera on the street over Copley Square. Where is the footage from the camera on the street? These were all different times that I went into court. Each time that I went into court, I presented them some other piece of evidence that was glaringly missing, and I continued to demand my jury trial. So it was the fourth time that I went into court. It was a different judge each time. And the fourth time I went into court, the judge, new judge, I forget what his name was, but he told me that I was too crazy to have a jury trial. And so he was going to deny me my jury trial, and that he was going to impose on me that I had to do a year of probation, and then all the charges would be dismissed. And sure enough, I super avoided the Boston pigs, who were all doped up on crack. And, they're a grossly corrupt organization. The Boston Pigs, they, across about 5 years, 71 of them pissed dirty. They took dirty piss tests. They had drugs in their system while they were taking their urinalysis. 61 of those were for cocaine. Now, cocaine, it's out of your system within 3 days. So, if they got, if they're at such a high rate pissing cocaine, that means that they're not just doing cocaine, they're addicted to cocaine. They're doing cocaine every day of the week that they can't pass a piss test. It's just so Boston is a grossly corrupt pig organization. The BPD is the Boston Pig Department, and so that's who I got harassed by, under Mitt Romney, no less. And I don't know, they did a bunch of harassment on me. They assaulted me a bunch of times with wholly no cause. They come out to where I was sitting in a park, and they'd walk up and assault me without even without any cause, not even investigating any crime, not investigating any report of a crime, not even on, somebody else calling in and saying, that anybody was being a nuisance. Just they would show up and decide to investigate all the people that I was sitting with. Nobody else ever got arrested. It was always me that got arrested. But, they wouldn't arrest me until I started reciting my political poetry and telling them how grossly corrupt the establishment is that they are working for. And then these bunch of, crack-smoking pigs, decide to arrest me then, because I'm telling them how corrupt and murderous the government is.